Very good. What did we say? I'm going to start with a question to you.
How did we get to here?
Should we welcome each other, or is that too corny?
So far, it's really corny.
Okay.
Yeah. So how did we get to New York?
How did we get to New York, Megan?
This is New York 2.0 for us.
Mm-hmm.
We lived here in our 20s and moved away, different places, raised our family, and decided to come back when our nest emptied, which it did. And we have been here for just under 2 years, and we love it. We have jobs here, we're working, we are in a different stage of life, and it's been a really great transition back to the city, for sure. And we were debating and deciding what to do about church, and...
Yeah, and we've been engaged in churches all of our adult lives. Megan, you've been engaged at church your entire life. Started going to church once you and I started dating. But in Los Angeles, we had deep roots in a church. In the Atlanta years, we had deep roots in our church. And when we were getting ready to move to New York, we started asking around, what did people know? And we had a pastor in an Atlanta church who was a good friend of ours, a great friend, still a great friend of ours, who recommended Good Shepherd and spoke highly of the music and of Michael's preaching. Mm-hmm. And so we came and we made a list of churches, correct?
I mean, I think it was a short list, but we had ideas. Even when we were here many moons ago, we worshiped at a large, well-known Presbyterian church that was here, and so that was kind of on our radar too.
So we did Good Shepherd first on the first Sunday, and then where did we go on the second Sunday?
Good Shepherd.
So the list is still unchecked. We checked Good Shepherd, and that's been the...
And we just stayed.
That's where we've been, yeah.
It's been a really, really good... I don't want to say the word fit, because I don't think that church is like supposed to, meet our needs completely, but it is a space that I think we felt really comfortable in and welcomed in, and also nice to be visitors and not be deeply embedded in a church experience and just come to experience the worship and test those waters a little bit. And at least for me, what I appreciated right away was the depth of the theology and the preaching, but also, and it sounds contradictory, the simplicity of the service, which means to me it just stays with really consistent liturgical practices, and they're really beautiful, and they are approached in a very humble and thoughtful way, but always excellent and always thought-provoking.
Long ago, a pastor at a church we were in L.A. had one of those pastor offhanded comments during a sermon and said, "Home is not where you're from, it's where you're going." And that has always resonated with me. And one of the things about this church, Good Shepherd, that I really see in the life of the church and the sermons that are coming out is that Jesus and the teaching is completely alive.
That's a good point, because what I reflect on a lot when I think about Good Shepherd and what Michael is very consistent with in his preaching and his homilies is just the gospel, is the life of Jesus, and how did Jesus live, and what does that mean for us? And that's almost it. And I just really am so grateful to be in a church space that sticks to that and speaks about Jesus that in a way that truly exemplifies how radical he is, where I think churches tend to shy away from that now, or don't really want to admit that for some reason. But the reality is he was a radical type of leader, and I think that we can all be reminded of that every day, because we live in a world that needs that kind of compassion and open-mindedness. And it's just occurred to me at this stage in our lives, and having a lot of church history, definitely behind me, a lifetime of it, realizing how much I wanted that and needed that, and didn't know that I wasn't really getting that kind of being fed in that way, when I just think, oh, someone is finally saying what I've been trying to articulate in a church experience. And that's been really exciting. And so that has made it unique for me and special and just really beautiful. It's just a beautiful service. I mean, we all know that. It's really beautiful.
As we began to engage the church, so the services are wonderful. There's a diverse age group of parishioners, of participants.
Well, we were curious. So we thought, okay, let's learn more about it as well. I mean, I tend to like to know what a church's position is on things and sort of what their mission is and their pillars as Good Shepherds. So we did go to a few of those early on when they were when Michael was hosting them on some consecutive weeks, and that was a good experience. And then we answered sort of an ask about starting a small group in our neighborhood. There wasn't one. We are in the Hudson Square, Tribeca area, and that's a small group that we decided to start and open up. And that was sort of I guess a leap of faith. I mean, you don't know who's going to show up.
We did learn that. So this is our second big move in about a decade. And the advice we got on the first one was say yes, lean into things.
That's true.
And so that's been...
So yeah, you said yes, and people signed up, and
that's been really, really enjoyable.
It's been so wonderful.
Really
I mean, it just kind of keeps evolving and growing, and different ages and stages in this group. We have been really supported by Alicia and just the pastoral staff there, and they've been very thoughtful groups and experiences. So that has been really nice, and it does narrow down the community focus and helps kind of hone in a little bit in a more personal way with people. And then suddenly you start showing up on Sundays and people, and that's kind of how it goes.
That part's been a lot of fun.
And what I've always thought about it is the exact kind of church that I would want to bring someone to who absolutely had no interest in church. And I would say, no, but this one, like, you're going to just appreciate the beauty of it. If you have any sense of appreciating arts and music and, any kind of spiritual structure, like, it's all in there. And I think that has been it's such a welcoming place. And people have said this before, that it's a really safe place. And I've noticed that it's not what we were seeking or like needing in that space, but it's so it's been pretty profound to be in a worship space that feels
we feel really excited to be able. There are so many people out there asking all the time, can I get into an ecumenical, non-denominational experience? I mean, those are words that people put together.
Yeah, and we're like, you can actually. It's
Chelsea
there
all the time.
It exists. So that's been it's been nice to feel like people are coming into this worship experience who need healing. That's been a new experience as well, at least for me, of this term church trauma, and recognizing like all the paths that we bring and that have brought us into different places in life, and that we can land there and find a place that is compassionate and welcoming for people. And I think that's been exactly what the gospel requires of us, actually. And so that's what's been so meaningful to me, is to say, oh, this is the ethos of Scripture, and we are in a space that somehow consistently, week after week, reminds us of that in a really great way. So
that comfort of the church, to be at a church where we are not the focused demographic, and this church leads with its heart and really communicates. We are open. We are an open church, and that message is open in particular, and yet I feel completely a part of it and want to do everything we can to support this church.
And when our children are here visiting, we've brought them to worship. We've done Christmas Eve, and our young adult son looked at us after Christmas Eve and said that was the best church service I've ever been to. And he's been to a lot in his life, He grew up in all of that. So it hits on a lot of levels for lots of different kinds of people and different places in their life, which I think is important too, for sure. And we've made some really good friends in our small group, and that's been really sweet. It's a nice thing to be able to do that and break bread and have that time together with each other.
Yeah, I feel like Michael has said in our early times, the span of New Yorkers is 3 to 5 years. And I don't know how long we'll be here, but that accelerated breaking down the groups into smaller groups fairly quickly means in the course of a year, course of 18 months, some deep friendships can form.
What I want to say is this has been a really very special, I think, for the two of us to find this together, because while we do have a shared history of faith, it's actually pretty unique in how we found each other, and that has been something that's evolved in our relationship. So I grew up in the church. I was born into practically like generations of the Presbyterian church, and all my life was doing that. In fact, went to a Christian school for most of my middle school, high school, and some of my elementary years. And it just was never not a part of my life. Mm-hmm. It didn't feel forced. It felt very welcoming and like, it's very Presbyterian. And but it was meaningful. Like my dad is an academic and theologian in that field. And so I felt like I had a very learned kind of like environment with that and grew up with it. And then we met, and you did not have that experience.
No, I did not. So I grew up in San Luis Obispo, California, wonderful town, but you go west, young man, to reinvent yourself in the American ethos. And so we were a wonderful family, loved my nuclear family, but church was not part of our daily life. So by the time you and I met, late into college, I had been to 2 Christmas services, maybe my entire life. And then we started to engage it when we lived here as younger, but then as we were starting to get a family together, we found a church, and it made a ton of sense. And so I would have told you that in that experience, what you were explaining, we entered this church, and I, for reasons that it made sense, I'm trying to think like for not necessarily societal norms, because I was going to say that, but the comfort of our family and the direction we were going, it made sense for us to join and move forward with. But I'll use that C.S. Lewis experience, I think, in his book, where he says that he had a sidecar ride in a motorcycle, and when they started the ride, he didn't believe in God, and then when they finished the ride, he did believe in God. So it just happened somewhere in between, and I feel like that in our journey. So then we moved to Atlanta, but then coming to New York we were searching for a church for our home, which was a very exciting
and we had different needs, right? So we didn't have kids. It wasn't, when you're starting out and you have young children, you're looking for a family environment at a church, and we found one, and it was amazing and wonderful. But even that started to pivot away when we relocated to Atlanta. They became a little less interested, and we, kind of had to navigate that differently. And then here, it really just did what's out there. There are exciting ministries happening everywhere. What are some really interesting, different ones? And this was, like you said, was the one that was introduced to us. And that's the one. It's the kind of thing you don't really know that's what you were looking for until you find it and say, that's exactly what I was hoping for, I think, now that I know.
Do you think there's any church pulpit in the world where the service ends and don't forget to pick up your kids, nails it, knocks it out?
Every time it works. It works every time, and nobody forgets their kids.
No,
they never do. They never do. Thinking about the next year for Good Shepherd, it's exciting. It's unsettling, potentially. And for some worshipers. But it's so rooted, and I can already sense that this next kind of encouragement campaign, for lack of a better word, the journey of this next season for Good Shepherd is so rooted in faith and humility and thoughtfulness. And what that makes me think of is how trustworthy it is as an institution. And I'm very grateful for that, to realize like I trust what's happening.
Yeah.
I trust the leadership. I trust what's coming out of the worship experience and what's being shared. And that's been so far.
Yeah, that's a great point.
It's exciting to me to think about it.
Yeah, they've established trust, and that the leadership, there's a big change coming, and they've done a very good job of being transparent, but then you know that they have more decisions behind the scenes that they need. They would be derelict in their duty if they weren't taking care of those. And the information that comes out is fair and transparent, and what cards they are holding close, there's no problem honoring that. But that wasn't really bring us to a conclusion of this. Yeah.
I'm excited for what's next. I am excited, instead of feeling like, okay, something's happening, I'm out. I feel like something's happening and I'm in. I'm in with that. And I'm
we've been here
about
less
that.
than 2 years. This church is about to go through a major change, and I'm much more likely to lean in and dig in deeper.